most people fall off the horse and they don't get back on. Well, that's one of the problems with a resolution. You fall off the horse, you make a slip, and you think, oh, I failed, and so much for that. Well, that's not the way to do it. It's a New Year's resolution, the operative word there being year. You've got a year. Get back on the horse and try again. So, if at first you don't succeed, as they say. Also, the basic rules to good resolutions are keeping them simple, keeping them small. So don't say I'll lose 30 pounds. Say I'll lose, say, a pound a week or something like that. And reward yourself when you accomplish a goal. And don't give up, really. It's really just a matter of perseverance more than anything else. I think when it comes to resolutions, people expect things to feel different in the new year. And so that somehow feeling will give them the confidence and the inspiration to go ahead with their resolutions. That the new year will feel different. And I have found that as we record this 8 days into 2020, 2020 feels about the same as 2019. It's just another year, just another day, and so you have to find the confidence and the inspiration from within to do the things you want to do. Nothing's changed except the date and hopefully your resolve. And speaking of differences, there is scientific research and stories from historical geniuses and everyday individuals who have not only made the most of their strange and different conditions, but who have flourished because of them. What is a brain difference? What does it mean to be successful because of a condition? And why do we need to rethink our views on what it means to have a brain difference, such as ADD or bipolar or autism, depression, anxiety, those type of things? Well, we talked about all of this with Dr. Gail Saltz, who explains all of this in a book that came out a while back called The Power of Different. And we caught up with Dr. Gail Saltz, who is Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry at New York Presbyterian Hospital and the Weill Cornell School of Medicine. And we caught up with her in New York City. The Power of Different. That's an interesting name. What do you think the name signifies? I'm curious about what you think about the name. The power of different. What were you trying to?
Power of different. What I'm trying to communicate is that there, in the brain, there are differences in wiring that, yes, can cause suffering, a mental health issue, a learning disability, but those same differences in wiring are also often connected to a very particular strength that can lead to, tremendous success, and often, at least historically, many of the people we would consider to be geniuses of history had such a difference.
Mm-hmm. What do we mean by a brain difference? Let's talk about that. What do you consider a brain difference?
And so I'm kind of coining that term to help people understand that the brain is an organ. It operates through the connection of neurons, and when there is a variation in that, and by the way, let me say, to some degree, we all have different wiring,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to become increasingly clear as certain research projects which are operating right now, looking at, quote, normal brains, sees the tremendous variations in brain wiring. But we all have some differences, but some differences do cause symptoms. Anxiety, mood problems, difficulty concentrating, difficulty relating to others, difficulty reading. And those kinds of wiring differences are essentially what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Why do we have them? Where do they come from?
Well, that's a great question, which we don't really know the answer to, but clearly many of them have a genetic or biological component, meaning they run in families. So there's such a high incidence within a family that clearly, there is some genetic component to it. And some of them are environmental in the sense that stressors that we're having, very difficult stressors, also the environment also affects wiring. And wiring in the brain is plastic, always changing. and it changes as a result of both our genes and the impact of environment.
Mm-hmm. How easy is it to rewire the brain?
Well, like I said, the brain is plastic, and we can make brain changes through sometimes medication and oftentimes therapy, because people think, well, therapy, how can that really change my brain? But the fact of the matter is, the brain processes emotions and talks to itself through chemicals, and so the more that something is stimulated, for example, the more it stimulates that pathway. So that can be a positive or a negative. So, for example, in the negative, if you have depression and you leave it untreated and you keep having depressions, it builds up certain pathways, that's called the kinetic effect, that make it more likely that you'll continue to have more depressions. It builds like that superhighway of depressions, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But at the same token, if you are struggling with depression and you get treatment and you sustain treatment, you shrink that pathway and you make it less likely that you will have subsequent depressions. And at the same time, you may have a particular strength going on that is hardwired in, and if you play to that strength and develop that, then you will build that superhighway. So the brain is plastic, and what we do does make change.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible to do this on our own, or do we need help in doing it?
Well, I think there are things one can do on their own, and it depends on the severity of the symptoms. So I try to make clear in the book, when things have risen to a level that actually intervention is important. So when it is affecting your functioning, your ability to function, look, we all get anxious sometimes. Mm-hmm. That is ubiquitous. Or we all are sad sometimes. That is ubiquitous. And there's things that one can do, a regular exercise, getting a good amount of sleep, having people that we can talk to in our lives, mindfulness or meditation. There are things that one can do to help their brains in this regard. But if something has risen to the level that it's, there for you much of your day, most days, for weeks on end, it's affecting your ability to function, then it's probably something that you do need to get intervention for and get some sort of treatment for to really set you back on track.
Mm-hmm. There's, I have to bring this up because there's somebody not really in my life, but who has kind of come in and out of my life, I know, who's not a relative or anything like that, but she has a scattershot brain. She can go from one thing to another. She can go from different moods in an instant. She can go from, she's just very unfocused. And I'm thinking she's a bright girl, she's an intelligent girl, she has talent, but she has no focus. And I'm thinking, she could probably be much more successful and have a good life if she were just rewired somehow. And the question is getting that to her. And
right.
So you just kind of wonder how to do that, because I'm Virgo, I want to fix everything, But
well, I don't know, obviously, without meeting your friend, but you're describing things that sound like attention deficit disorder, mm-hmm. which is connected to often highly original, creative, innovative thought, mm-hmm. But is also a difficulty in regulating when you attend. And it is figuring out the things that most interest you, because when you have ADD and you're very interested in the subject, your tendency is to hyperfocus and really focus down and do incredibly in that arena. So trying to figure out what that arena is and using that as the prism through which you do most things can be a big boon to people who really struggle with that disorder.
Mm-hmm. What we think about disorders is maybe just as important as the disorders themselves. And so do we need to rethink what we think about ADD and ADHD and anxiety and depression, etc.? Is that also what you're trying to say here?
I am definitely trying to say that. I'm trying to say that it's 2017, people, and this is sort of the last frontier of stigma, that we still sort of shame people who have a mental health issue or learning disability as though, it's a moral failing, or, they can't control it, or, they're crazy in this very pejorative sense. And we do them no favors. We do all of us no favors. In fact, the close to 50% of Americans who will have a mental health diagnosis in their life, we do no favors, because people, stay isolated, they don't get treatment. So we need to start seeing that these are differences like if you had diabetes, if you had heart disease, these are biologic differences that require treatment and can benefit from treatment. And at the same time, they often confer something quite wonderful. Let's put it this way. If we got rid of all of the geniuses of history, the Van Goghs and the Hemingways and the Abraham Lincolns and the Albert Einsteins that had a mental health diagnosis, we would have no history, So we need to start seeing how this all fits together, and that and that shaming around this issue just has no place.
Mm-hmm. So then, are you saying that we need to? I'm going to put this word here. Maybe it's not the right word. We need to celebrate these type of disorders in some way, or build upon them, or use them as a building block somehow to enhance those people's abilities.
Absolutely. I don't want to sugarcoat disorders. They can really cause suffering. So I really want people to get treatment. And I want them to get treatment early. But at the same time, yes, I want people to understand that there may be a real ability or gift or talent that is conferred in addition, and that playing to that will benefit that person, their family, and society as a whole. We need the Richard Bransons who have dyslexia and ADD. We need these people. They are, the talents. They are the innovators, and we need to celebrate that. But at the same time, obviously, treat suffering so that people don't have to feel alone and suffer miserably. As actually the earlier historic geniuses I mentioned, they were very unhappy. Yes, they did great things for society that we now enjoy, the books, the art, the leadership, but they suffered in silence because there weren't treatments available for them.
Is there not only is there a double-edged sword that if you treat the disorder, you also lose the genius, the creativity, the strengths?
The answer is no. The answer is no. The data support that treating does not diminish the strength. People get very concerned about this around, say, bipolar disorder. They're like, well, I am so super creative, which is true, and if I treat myself, maybe I won't have that. But the reality is that if you bring it down just a little bit, even if they don't have the most heightened creative thought that they might have during an ill period, that their ability, they still have more than the normal creative amount of thought, and they're able to utilize it if they're treated.
Dr. Saltz, I'm coming up on time here. Is there something we have missed that you want to get out there, something we haven't talked about that you want to mention?
Well, I really hope that parents will read this book and advocate in educational systems for their child, because a lot of children are diagnosed with ADD or dyslexia or anxiety, and parents really need to step in and help the school utilize that child's gifts as well.
How can we use this book? How should somebody who reads that put it into practice?
Well, I think I specifically am going to give you diagnostic information so that you can see what might be going on in your life or your loved one's life. I specifically give workarounds. What I call workarounds are coping tools that people can utilize if they're struggling with the symptom. And then I specifically give you the data and the research that supports the particular strengths that you want to be on the lookout for and how you can utilize that in you or your loved one's life.
Dr. Saltz, I wish I had another 15 minutes with you because this is a fascinating topic to talk about. But let's get the book. The Power of Different is out by Flatiron Books. I love that name. I love I love that.
Out today. So, they can go to my website, drgailsaltz.com, and it can be ordered there, or they can go to Amazon, they can go to Barnes & Noble.